Let's get to the latest twist on the NAFTA saga. Reports earlier today suggesting that Mexico and the United States have made some pretty significant progress on advancing NAFTA talks to the point of potentially re-involving Canada in the discussions. As the stories unfolded, though, it's become increasingly clear that an agreement between the U.S. and Mexico is still far from a handshake away, and Canada not part of this. What exactly does that mean? For more on this, we've got Cassella joining us. She's a trade reporter for Politico. She's in Washington. She's been writing about all of this. So, Megan, good to have you with us first off, and thank you for your time.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
We keep hearing there's optimism, then there's not. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Where do we stand right now? Can you kind of make sense of it all for us?
I think right now we are pretty optimistic, depending on how you look at it and depending on, what perspective you're taking. It seems like the U.S. and Mexico are really close to a deal. They're both hesitant to say that, one, because they just simply don't want to jinx it. They don't want to say we're there and then have the other partner back away. And it also undermines their negotiating position a little bit if they say, of course, we're all the way on board. Then, if the U.S. says we're on board, then Mexico might say, well, then are you desperate enough to also accept, one more thing? But I think those two parties are pretty close, but everyone recognizes that a NAFTA deal isn't a NAFTA deal without Canada involved. And so it's going to be really tricky once Canada does return to the table, whether that's later this week or next week, or whenever it may be. It's going to be tricky to have them agree to everything that the U.S. and Mexico have been talking about for several weeks now.
Well, here's what's interesting and frankly a little confusing. Depending on who you listen to, you get a different story. So up here north of the border in Canada, our government is optimistic, and this is just sort of a bilateral set of discussions going on. And yet the president and some other top advisors have indicated a different situation, which is those pesky Canadians are being very difficult and stubborn. They're not willing to give up any concessions. So we're going to cut a deal with the Mexicans first, and then we'll see if we can entice Canada back to the table. Is that what you're hearing where you are?
It is. You're right that it depends on who you're talking to at the moment. I think there had been some rumors and some questions a few weeks back that there might be ill will between the U.S. and Canada, and why was Canada being left out of the discussions. But I think we've sort of moved past that, and the U.S. and Mexico both recognized that they had more bilateral issues to work out than Canada needed to be privy to or to be a party of, although they've been in the loop the whole time. I think where it's going to get a little bit trickier is once Canada does return to the table. They're not under the same political time constraints that the U.S. and Mexico are. So there's some concern that Canada might recognize that and try to get more leverage by holding things out until the very, very end and saying, we're not as desperate to reach a deal as you all. And so if the two of you are more desperate, what might you be willing to give up, or what might you be willing to give us if you want a deal so badly?
Absolutely. And, there has been this talk going back months and months, Megan, and covering this for Politico, you would know this, where the Trump administration has said, maybe we should have bilateral deals. In other words, get rid of this trilateral situation, cut a deal one-to-one with Mexico, cut a deal one-to-one with Canada. And if Canada and Mexico want to cut a deal, they can do that as well. But we're fine with having 2 separate deals.
They have said that for a long time. And every once in a while, that threat still comes back up. I think the president has backed off it a little bit. And I think that's largely because in the past few weeks, when the U.S. has been engaging mostly with Mexico and not with Canada, you started to hear a little bit of an outcry from business groups, from some lawmakers who were saying that because of this very complicated trade statute under which the Trump administration is negotiating the deal, they committed a year ago to negotiating a trilateral deal. And so it looks like if they did try to get technical and break it into 2 deals, that there would be severe backlash from business groups in Congress and other places saying that's not what you told us, and so you don't have the negotiating authority to even do that.
Cassella is a trade reporter for Politico, joining us live from Washington. Great to have you with us. Thanks so much for helping us with all of this, and we'll talk to you again soon, no doubt.
I hope so. See ya.